Sorry guys, I forgot to turn back my mic. That would be very awkward. Anyway, welcome back guys to the GSMC Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We just got back from talking about round one of the US Women's Open and professional golf, and now we're going to talk about the Women's Softball World Series. Yesterday on the show, we talked about game 1 and 2, where Oklahoma beat Duke and UCLA beat Alabama. I also made some predictions on game 4, so today we're going to talk about the results of game 3 and 4, and then make some predictions on the 5th and 6th game. The 5th game is taking place right now, where Alabama and Duke went against each other. I'm so sorry, I just realized I forgot to change the title. Sorry about that. Okay, so Duke went against Alabama. It's taking place right now. This is the elimination game. I have not yet taken a look at the score because I wanted to make some predictions about how this game might end up. The 6th game is taking place at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 30 minutes after the show today. It might end later. It might start later, because there was weather delays and all of that, and you never know. It might start later, but it is supposedly starting at 9:30 p.m. The 6th game, like I said, is Stanford v. Oklahoma State, and because that game has not happened yet, I'm going to tell you guys some of my predictions on how the game is going to play out. Okay, let's get started talking about game 3, which was UT Austin v. Stanford. Okay, so I predicted that UT Austin would beat Stanford, and I was correct. Yay! The final score was 4-0. Nijaree, Canady, the pitcher at Stanford, had some amazing pitches and did really good. She made a lot of good highlights. She was one of the starting players for Stanford of the game. She had 5 strikeouts, allowed 5 hits and 4 runs, and caused 4 walks. Canady really stood out, especially with the strikes and strong, controlled pitches. But she also had a few too many walks that caused UT Austin to do a lot better offensively. The issue with a team like UT Austin is when you have a team that is that strong offensively, you can't risk any walks. Because as soon as they get on base, it's like downhill from there. If they get a one-hitter on there, because they have amazing hitters, then it's kind of risky, if that makes sense. On the other hand, though, Teagan, Kavan, the pitcher for the Longhorns, had an amazing game. She only allowed 1 hit, 4 walks, and 0 runs. She had 8 strikeouts, which is really impressive, especially when you watch how controlled and fast her pitches were. Bella Dayton, Mia Scott, Katie Stewart, Katie Henry were the Longhorn players who scored the runs, and then Bella Dayton, Mia Scott, Ashton Maloney, and Kaden Henry all had hits, and Henry had a total of 2 hits. What really got Stanford down was the fact that they only got 1 hit, and that was from Ava Gall, so they didn't really have much opportunity there offensively. They had to rely on their defense, but at the end of the day, you can't rely on your defense. Well, you can, but you have to. It only matters when you're able to get some scoring up there, too, in order to win the game. So let's talk about game 4. This one I'm very happy with my predictions here. I predicted that Oklahoma State Florida would be a very close game, and I also predicted that Florida would come out on top. Guess what, guys? I was right. Yay! Florida won the game with a final score of 1-0. Even though Florida is ranked 1 position higher than them, these two teams are so evenly matched when they play against one another, in a way. Until the 5th inning, the score was 0-0. Florida got a run in the 5th inning, and Oklahoma State was just not able to keep up. They got people on the bases, but Florida's defense was just not letting them get a point at all. I think this game showed that Florida's defense is pretty strong, but I think they need to work more on their offense. Lexi Kilfoyle pitched for OSU, and she did pretty well. She let 3 walks and only 2 hits. Kagan Rothrock pitched for Florida, and she did pretty well also. Both pitchers equally did great. Rothrock allowed 2 hits and 2 walks, but she had 3 strikeouts. Katie Kistler had the run for Florida, and her hit was pretty solid. It was strategic, it seemed like. So based on these stats, it just wasn't that interesting. It just wasn't... I'm trying to stop myself from saying that because it was interesting of a game to watch. But just based on these stats of how the score went, it wasn't that interesting of a game to watch. It wasn't a high-scoring game in that way because they just didn't have any hits. But it was interesting to watch in the sense that you didn't know who was going to win at some points. I love games that have a lot of hits and runs, I'll say, and this game just didn't have that. But yeah, it kept you on your toes because it could go either way with how close the score was, really. Okay, moving on to game 5. Alabama v. Duke has their elimination game right now. It started at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, but you never know how long a softball game will go, and it probably is not over yet. So let's talk about some of my predictions, and it'll be really awkward. My predictions are totally incorrect, but we're just going to talk about them confidently. We're just going to go with it. I think this is going to be a close game as well. Alabama is sort of the underdogs here, considering they are ranked 14th, while all the other teams that are in the World Series are ranked above them. Anna Snyder the reporter for Alabama Softball News, wrote, with Beaver pitching the full game on Thursday, Brisky will likely get the start in the circle on Friday in what will be her first Women's College World Series appearance. Brisky has given up 5 runs in 5 appearances in the NCAA tournament. Taking control of the game from the circle will be essential for the Alabama pitching staff to hold the Duke offense at bay. Timely hitting to provide run support for its pitching will also be essential for Alabama, as will taking advantage of a Duke team that rotated between 4 pitchers in the loss on Thursday and matched its season high of allowing 9 runs. It will for sure be interesting to see Brisky starting. Now for Duke, their offense is led by Claire Davidson, who is batting .438 on the season with 67 RBIs. The Duke offense ranks 13th in the NCAA in batting average, but was held to 3 hits against Oklahoma. Now, Duke may rank ahead of Alabama in batting average and ERA, but Alabama has proved to be a difficult team to beat this postseason. This is the second time that Duke and Alabama will be going head-to-head. The last time they went head-to-head was in 2023, and it was a close game then, but Alabama ended up beating Duke in the end. I'm predicting that Alabama will win this game. It is a risky prediction, I'll say. I think it's important to note that having a fresh pitcher in the circle will benefit Alabama. Brisky has done really well in the season, only giving up 5 hits in 5 games. Her fresh arm could be a strategic advantage, especially against a Duke team that might be, fatigued from using 4 pitchers in their previous game. Also, Duke's previous game exposed some vulnerabilities, especially in their pitching, as they allowed a season high of 9 runs. I think Alabama needs to capitalize on this by ensuring their hits are timely and effective, potentially putting pressure on Duke's rotation, which may still be recovering from the last outing. This game may be close and very competitive, but I do have confidence in some way that Alabama will end up going home with a victory. I'm hoping they do because they are technically the underdog in the situation. And also, it would be nice for them to win. Again, this would be the second time that they would win against Duke. So now let's talk about Game 6, which will take place after the show today. Game 6 is Stanford v. Oklahoma State. I think what is going to help Stanford in this game the most is Nijaree Canady, strong pitches. Based on this season, Stanford just doesn't get enough offense. Like I've said in other videos, in their 15 losses this season, they've scored either 0 or 1 run 9 times. Taryn Kern is also their hope here because she's a good hitter. Like I've said before, she's the team leader in both on-base percentage and slugging percentage. Also, Stanford has a pretty strong defense. Now, on the other side, we have OSU, who I felt like didn't have their best game ever against Florida, but their superpower is going to be their pitcher, Lexi Kilfoyle, I think. The team also has been in the top teams for home runs, so I think they should do well on offense against Stanford. Carolyn Wang leads the team with 17 home runs and 51 RBIs, so if she has a good game, I think OSU's offense could be pretty dominant. For this game, I'm going to have to say that OSU might have a slight edge against Stanford and might take home the victory. OSU's offensive strength, particularly their capability to hit home runs, is a critical advantage. Their lineup indicates that they have the power to potentially overwhelm Stanford's defense. This ability to generate significant offense contrasts sharply with Stanford's, struggle to score in many of their losses this season. Also, Stanford's low offensive output in numerous games is a concern, particularly in high-pressure situations like this one. OSU, despite a less than stellar performance against Florida, has shown resilience and the ability to score heavily and pass, which might give them the edge here. While both teams have their strengths and weaknesses that sort of contrast with one another, I think OSU is going to win this game. That is what I'm predicting. That is what I'm thinking. Yeah. So now I'm going to go on and move to our next segment where we're going to talk about some more predictions, but this time we're talking about CrossFit. This is my favorite segment of today because I love talking about the CrossFit semifinals. I think it's so fun, and I think it's so fun to predict the CrossFit semifinals because they're all so amazing, all athletes that are and I'm just you can't I don't know, I have a hard time predicting for all of them because it's just so complicated because they're all amazing athletes. But we're going to get into it after we take a short little break here. So I will see you guys very soon after the break.